All right. Hey, it's Amber. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. I make videos about kind of crunchy motherhood and lifestyle. Today, I am opening up about something really personal. My heart is like pounding right now. It's been 10 months, July being the 10th month, of Alex and I trying for a second baby, and it has not happened, and it has been really tough. I've been going back and forth for a few months now about sharing this. I've actually only told a couple of people, and that's part of my hesitation, that most people I know, including everyone in my family, does not know about this. Like, this is how they're going to find out. It's also just a hard thing to discuss and to put into words because there are just so many emotions. But I'm in a better place now than I was a few months back. And I also want to share this because so many people that are going through this are doing it in silence. Sharing this could help somebody else. Like, these types of videos have been really helpful for me, especially since I haven't told a lot of people, just to know that even though I'm not talking to someone else, I'm not alone. It's also getting so much harder to share my life on here, but to hide this, which has become kind of a big part of my life at this point. I also do just want to say that this is not an advice video or anything like that. This is a life update and a very raw look into our journey to baby number 2 so far. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and let's chat. Alex and I knew that we were going to start trying last October, so 2024, because we knew we wanted around a 2-year age gap. 3 months prior to that, Alex had started taking Fertility, which is basically like a prenatal for men. I was still nursing Kai at the time, so I had not stopped taking a prenatal. And I also had started drinking decaf espresso. That's actually not something that I did to get pregnant. There were other reasons I started drinking decaf, but the fact that caffeine in high amounts can negatively affect your fertility was kind of just an added bonus. It's kind of sad to say that going into it, I didn't necessarily feel excited, but I felt more prepared knowing that it could take a little bit of time. Whereas the first time Alex and I started ever trying, I really thought within 3 months we would be pregnant. I also felt hopeful that maybe if Alex and I implemented some of the things that we did last time around the time that we actually did get pregnant, that maybe our road to baby would be a lot shorter, or at least a little bit shorter. October rolls around, and that was the first and only month that we really tried casually, and it was also the only month that I genuinely thought I did get pregnant. I've been tracking my basal body temperature, or BBT, for years now. It's a really great way to help you know where you're at in your cycle. It can give you a heads up that you might be pregnant or that your period might be coming. And when I was pregnant with my son during the 2-week wait, so I didn't know I was pregnant, it went up the highest that I've ever recorded it. So I didn't know I was pregnant, but that definitely made me tilt my head. This first month that Alex and I tried, my basal body temperature went up even higher than it did when I was pregnant with my son. I was really convinced that we were pregnant, and I actually do think we did get pregnant and that I just had a really early miscarriage, or what they call a chemical pregnancy. I did take a pregnancy test. It came back negative, but I took it at like 9 or 10 DPO, I can't remember which, and I took it at noon. I don't even know why I took it to begin with, because I know that that's already pretty early to be testing anyway, and then on top of that, you're supposed to be using your first morning urine, and I was using like hours after. Even though I got a negative, I was still hopeful that I was pregnant and that it was just too early. But then I started my period the next day, and I was so hopeful that maybe it was like implantation bleeding that I actually took another pregnancy test at the onset of my period, which of course was negative. It was a huge letdown because I was so excited at the thought of us actually getting pregnant on the first try, whereas last time it took 8 months. And it was October, so the thought of telling our families around Christmas had me really excited, and it just really shook me when we weren't pregnant. Even though I felt so much more prepared for the struggle. I also felt like I had been transported back to 6-7 months deep into trying the first time around. And I kind of surprised myself at how upset and bothered I got by this. I think had I not been so sure that I was pregnant, I probably would have moved on a little bit faster. I am not one to do anything halfway. So after that, we really dove headfirst into trying. I track my BBT, which syncs up with an app, my cervical fluid, cervical height, and cervical, firmness, and then I also use LH strips. I track all of this aside from the LH strips regardless because I think it's just good to know what's going on with your body, but it feels so much less stressful when you're tracking it just to track it and not because you're actually trying to do something with that information, because that's when it almost starts to feel science experiment-y. November was also when we started house hunting much more seriously, and that is also when I really started to struggle with sleep. I think I know it's from the stress of trying to find the perfect first home and feeling like there's still just so much competition out there for homes, and being completely blunt, not having something that I wanted, which was to be pregnant. And I know that kind of sounds like bad and spoiled, but I'm pretty type A. So when I want something, I am just like, okay, how can we make a plan to get that thing? How can we make that goal a reality? And so trying to get pregnant has always been a tough thing for me because you only have so much control over what happens. A lot of it is timing things out right, but a lot of it also is luck and just it being like a good quality sperm and a good quality egg. Because I was struggling so much more than I thought I would, I started trying to distract myself with baking. I started making desserts every single week. I started reading only fiction and fantasy, whereas I normally would rotate between fiction and then a self-improvement book. But I wanted to make sure that every time I was reading, the book that I was reading was really pulling me in and capturing me so that my mind wouldn't wander. I'm not sure that that was the healthiest way to deal with it because it is kind of dealing with it by way of avoiding it, which I absolutely noticed because every time I wasn't busy or actively working on something, I would feel really anxious. Like my heart would be pounding. I would just feel really obsessive and I would go down the Google, the Instagram, or TikTok rabbit hole all the time if I wasn't doing something. I told Alex that this time around, I didn't want to wait until we're 6 months-ish deep to get outside support, and that I'd much rather, after 3 months, if it doesn't happen, get some support. At this point, it's December. I also started taking Fullwell Fertility Booster, NAC, which I also started taking before I got pregnant with Kai, and I started eating gluten-free, which is another thing I did before I got pregnant with him, because it's suspected that I have endometriosis, and apparently eating gluten-free can help with inflammation. That might seem kind of extreme, but it's just one of those things where I know it's not gonna hurt to try. 3 months came and went, and we still weren't pregnant. So of course that really bummed me out, but I was also a little bit excited to be getting that outside support and to be in a position where we could afford to do so. I think the excitement mostly stemmed from feeling like we were doing something proactive instead of just doing the same thing over and over again and just hoping that this time something will be different. I got my hormones checked, everything checked out fine. I also started going to acupuncture again every single week, and then she put me on a couple herbal supplements. I really was not happy with the place that I went to get my hormones checked. This might seem a little bit like a tangent, but it makes the whole journey so much harder when you are seeking out support and feel like you're paying money and not getting it in return, or like you're needing to fight and advocate for yourself so much harder than you should have to. It actually wasn't a doctor, it's a team of nurses and midwives, and I was excited about that because I had such a great experience with the midwives that I used when I was pregnant with Kai. Even though that had nothing to do with conception, it was only pregnancy and birth. But these midwives advertised preconception and fertility testing, so it just seemed like a no-brainer to me. But they were extremely lax. Both times that I went to get my blood drawn, they hadn't put in the orders, so I had to call them, and then I had to wait around the lab for them to actually put it in and then for the lab to receive it. And originally they also didn't check my progesterone, which seemed kind of odd to me because that's a key player in getting pregnant. So I called them to let them know I wanted to get my progesterone checked. And they were like, we'll just put you on a progesterone prescription. And I was like, what? No, like, let's get it checked first before you put me on something. The last straw for me was when I requested to get an HSG test done, and they didn't say no per se, but they were really discouraging me from getting it done, and they were just acting like I was annoying for even asking that. They finally told me, we'll ask the doctor that we refer out to for those, but it's probably gonna take months to hear back and he might say no. And at that point I was just like, never mind. It really just annoyed me and rubbed me the wrong way because I wasn't asking for something super invasive like exploratory surgery, and I was willing to pay the money even if insurance didn't cover it. It would give me peace of mind just to know that everything is clear down there. And also it was kind of just like, don't tell me what I can and can't do with my body. All of that I had just talked about, plus acupuncture, had been happening over the course of 3 months. And I was kind of spiraling a little bit because I was so frustrated that I felt like Alex and I were doing everything. Alex also had done some things. I'm not going to talk too much about his side of things because that's his business, but he started drinking decaf coffee, not all the time, but a lot of the time. He cut out alcohol completely. And we still weren't pregnant. I felt at war with myself a lot of the time because part of me just wanted to obsess over what we could do, should do, haven't done, and just sulk. And the other half of me was like, no, you have to be present and you have to be happy because this time around you have a toddler and it's not his fault. I was also just exhausted because I was still having sleep issues. And at that point, I knew for sure it was the whole TTC thing that was getting to me because we had already bought and settled into this home 2 months prior, and I was still having issues falling asleep. It would usually take me like an hour, sometimes 2 hours to fall asleep. And a lot of times I would wake up in the middle of the night and not be able to go back to sleep for hours. After those 3 months, I also had to stop doing acupuncture because it was just way too expensive to keep doing every single week. Nothing had happened, and it was really becoming a little bit more stressful than relaxing because the acupuncturist that I was seeing only worked Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which is great for her, love that for her, but it made it a lot harder for me because that meant Alex needed to come home from work for me to be able to go. And when we moved into this house, it went from a 20-minute drive to a 45-minute drive. So it was almost a 3-hour ordeal to drive there, do the hour appointment, and then come back. It just was feeling like a wrench was being thrown into our routine every single week. So I just couldn't do it anymore. During month 8, I made an appointment with like an actual clinic with doctors to go over all of my labs, just in case, because again, I feel like those midwives weren't very thorough. Like when they called me, they were just like, yep, everything's good. When you're in this, like you do kind of want it explained to you like you have no idea what's going on. The doctor was super sweet. She told me everything looked fine. She did go through and break everything down. She told me I actually have like a way higher than average egg count, but not PCOS. I don't have any of the markers for PCOS other than that. She also told me I could get an HSG test if I wanted, but she really recommended I wait until the 12-month mark, but she was like, if you want, call me and we'll do it. I told her I'll wait for now, and then it was literally the next month. I was like, no, I actually want to do it. So month 9, I went in. I didn't actually have an HSG. It's similar to an HSG, but instead of using an oil-based dye, they used saline and then they injected the dye into the saline. And instead of an X-ray, they use I think it's a transvaginal ultrasound where they put it up your vagina. And of course, everything came back normal. And this time the doctor was like, okay, don't come back until it's been 12 months. It's such a weird feeling to borderline want something to be wrong when you get these kinds of things done, because obviously I don't want to find out that I have a blocked tube, but I almost did kind of want something to be wrong. Or like when I had my hormones checked, I almost wanted something to be wrong so that I would just have an explanation for why it's not happening when I feel like I'm doing everything else exactly right. But something did shift in me during that 9th month. I basically just let go. Not in a bad way. I just decided I'm done trying to force it. Of course, we're still actively trying, but there is a difference between being attentive and obsessive to what's going on in your cycle. I decided I needed to be the former and not the latter. I also was just done panicking over the age gap that we wanted getting bigger and bigger because it's out of my control. Even though I had been making a good and I would say successful effort to be present with Kai and to just enjoy him for where he's at in his life, all of this that I had talked about was still going on in the background, and it was just taking way too much out of me. Like I said at the beginning of this, I've been in a much better place for the last couple months than I was the entire 8 months prior. A couple other things that have really helped me in getting to this point now is focusing on self-care that aligns with my cycle. So kind of like a light version of cycle syncing. The key here is that I'm doing it in a non-transactional way. I'm not doing it because I'm expecting my body to give me something in return anymore, which I think can be a relatively common mindset when you've been trying for a while. And I'm done putting my life on hold, because for a while there, I would be like, oh, we shouldn't plan to do this because if I get pregnant this month, then I'll be 6 months pregnant when we're gonna do that, and then we couldn't do it and we'd have to cancel it. And I just wanna live my life, and if it happens and Alex and I have something planned that me being pregnant interferes with, I'm confident that we can figure it out. If you are going through this, whether you're not as far along as I am, or maybe you're way deeper in the trenches, just know that my heart is wrapped around you and you are not alone. I'm in the 2-week wait right now, so I don't know what's going to happen, but if you would like me to continue sharing pieces of this journey, or if you want a deeper dive into anything that I talked about during this video, please let me know in the comments. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here and for just listening. I will see you in the next one.